I met Caitlin supposedly Belknap doing this kind of work. That is corporate power work. Coincidentally, September 10th of 2001 at a week-long retreat to deal with corporate power at what we call the democracy movement, trying to figure out about corporate power. Obviously, the events of September 11th were tragic, were profound. Who knows what the underlying facts were or what led up to that, but one thing we know for sure, that the World Trade Center was bombed, and we know that the American people have been lied to about whatever happened. We know that for sure. But I met Caitlin there. We got involved. I couldn't convince her to move to Texas. She said, you should really come check out this place, Humboldt County. I came down for, I said, I'll come and check it out for 2 weeks, and I've been here for 8 years ever since.
There you go.
The system is designed to prevent any working class person from being able to participate, whether it's as a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, Independent. So there is an economic barrier that is intentionally designed. There is also structural barriers to make sure that you stay within the Democratic and the Republican parties so that you can be properly controlled and vetted as a candidate by the banksters and the mobsters that control the leadership of both of those two establishment
Which is
parties.
why the controls and backlash happens even more if you're not a part of one of those parties.
Absolutely.
And you're as well trying to get into the debates.
Let's talk about the debates. I'm proud to say I was arrested with Libertarian candidate Michael Badnarik when we had the audacity to try to just cross the picket line of presidential debates in 2004. Our argument was we have the right to participate as individual candidates, our own free speech rights, but also the American people had the right to hear us.
Yes.
We both were on the ballot in over 35 states across this country. The American people deserve to hear an actual anti-war candidate or an anti-war position, because both the Libertarian and Greens both were the only parties calling for an immediate end to the war and occupation of Iraq. We were the only parties that were calling for dismantling NAFTA and the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund. We were the only parties calling to dismantle and overturn the so-called Patriot Act. And the American people never heard that.
Yep. They never hear about it, and it's a terrible thing that they don't, because I think that if more people were allowed to hear the other points of view, they would probably be voting away from the Democrat and Republican positions. Because I hear that from a lot of people around other parts of the country, our family in other parts of the country, that they don't even have other options to vote for in their own states that they're in.
Right. It has been a Herculean effort on the part of Greens and Libertarians in California to get on the ballot and to actually maintain its ballot status. So and it takes most of the party infrastructure just to make sure that these stay on the ballot. And I'll tell you this, Jason, and your viewers, the Green Party does not have a requirement of any money before you can seek our nomination. Just to say, there's a primary process. You still have to go through that because the state imposes it. But we don't require any financial filings.
So that was the 2004 election. So they pretty much didn't want anybody who wasn't a Skull and Bones brother up there.
Yes, I just if it wasn't clear to viewers from my background and my worldview, I'm not a member of Skull and Bones.
Excellent.
Neither is Michael Badnarik. So the Green and the Libertarian were the two non-Skull and Bones candidates in that election.
Kerry and Bush were two frat boys running against each other. I mean, I wonder if if they put two Republicans in and just he changed his party like a Lieberman type character, right?
Or two Democrats.
Or two Democrats, exactly.
Yeah, this is the thing, and you know what's interesting, Jason, that it's rank and file members of the Republican Party and rank and file members of the Democratic Party actually have more in common with each other than they realize if they would actually take a moment to take a look at some of the deeper issues, especially the economic issues around the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Federal Reserve, and campaign expenditures by corporations. We actually have more in common with each other. Again, the leadership of the Democratic and Republican parties are in cahoots. We, the people, are going to have to figure out a way around them.
Indeed.
We can do electoral politics with integrity. We just can't do it with integrity within the Democratic or Republican parties.
So it requires generally like creating another base, another foundation,
Yes.
an alternative, not even entertaining the notion that we can
And
do something in these systems that they offer us.
What is it that brought you to see corporations specifically in a different light? As our unelected masters in a certain way.
The reality is, it's important to understand that the corporation is nothing more than an institution. It's an instrument to accumulate wealth, power, and decision-making authority. It can be used for great good
as a proper tool.
As a proper tool when it's properly being used. Yeah. The problem is, under our social, political, and economic system, the corporation has basically, and the owners of it, the one, not even just the kind of rich, the super elite rich, the multinational corporate owners, the banksters who own the currency and the corporations are able to use the corporation against us. They have used the corporation to accumulate so much wealth, power, and decision-making authority that they have hijacked, literally, our government, our institutions, and they use the corporations. Unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs exercise more power and authority than elected representatives do today.
Yeah.
So, we've got a problem in this country, and it's not just individual laws. It is legal doctrines like corporate personhood that allows corporations to have hijacked our government, our institutions, and it's high time that we took ourselves seriously and began to organize to take our country back.
It wasn't always that way. In the beginning, wasn't there a public good corporations were supposed to provide, and there was more transparency, and they weren't making the laws and also being able to simultaneously disregard them. It wasn't like that. It was a metamorphosis, a change. And one of the major changes was after the Civil War, right?
That's right. And it's interesting, Jason, and I'm glad you brought this up. Remember that for the first 75 years of this country, before creating a corporate, business was allowed, and commerce flourished, actually. But in order to get the special dispensation of limited liability and to get the special dispensation that a corporation affords under the law, you had to get a bill introduced in the House of Representatives, passed by the second branch, and signed by the governor. So it was a huge deal, and every step of the way you had to prove we are going to do something that is such a matter of public interest that is not being done properly or sufficiently by government, and it can't be done by just private individuals. We need to create this corporation under law in order to do them. And the state laws said, all right, we'll let you do that, and you have to jump through all these hoops, but you cannot contribute to elections, you cannot own property, you cannot own shares in other corporations. The corporation as an instrument was very tightly controlled. But I don't want to make it sound like this was the land of milk and honey for working people or for Indians or for black people or for women.
Yeah, there were other forms of oppression that were going on before they were able to gain as much control and influence as they have.
In a way, they've kind of had to change their strategies over the years because people figure out their tricks and they start calling them on it, and they have to change their ways.
The ruling elites realized that they were losing control of the political system that they had created, and so they started to use the corporation at that time, and that's whenever...
As an elevated legal citizen or something.
Yes, a super person.
With more, super person with more rights and more resources available to them.
Which isn't too unlike its original history, like the British East India Company and the South Africa Company we've already mentioned. It was a mechanism for imperial rule. So it still seems to be taking that role. And like in another thing in the Anglo-American establishment, the book explains that these ruling elites, through their influence and their networking, sought to rejoin the colonies with the British Empire. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things.
Let's put it this way. The birth of the modern transnational corporation comes out of empire. Yeah. The East India Company, the Royal Dutch Trading Company, the Africa Trading Company. Anybody want to hazard a guess what the Africa Trading Company traded? Human beings, right? I mean, it's deplorable, it's disgusting, it's sick. Empire is sick. The Blackwater Army is not functionally that different than the East India Company that had its own army that was actually larger than the English army. It's a corporate empire based on exploitation and greed and oppression.